Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Not Another Rangers podcast. And it's a Monday night, as you're all aware, because it's the day I hate of the week, because I'm back at work on Monday and I can't be bothered. But welcoming tonight, I've got two great guests tonight. I've got a long lost brother in Scotty, and I've got an old favourite in William. So welcome, Scotty. How are you?
I'm all right. That's a very kind introduction. Long time no see.
I know, well.
As well.
Then we've got William up the top. How are you, William?
Well, I only seen you the other day there, so I've not missed you that much, to be honest with you.
No, I know you were slagging me at the Arthurley Johnson Bar game. Even though
That was a superb.
Two cans of tenants and two pies that cost about a tenner.
Mate, honestly, that was a tremendous day out. I would thoroughly tell anybody to go to the Arthurley games, cracking day out, loads of fun, loads of chat, loads of banter, some cracking goals, weren't there, as well, so it was a really good day.
And you can get a pie and a pint, well, a pie and a can of tenants for a fiver. You don't get that
Tell you, my life doesn't get any better, mate. It's the simple things in life.
No, just wish it was like good at Ibrox at this moment in time. So, Scotty, I know you know we're on a pod for else, so I'm going to go through this evening, mate. Just go through the start of the season up until this international break. But I'm going to start first of all with Nico Raskin, because that's what everybody's talking about. And I've heard two sides of it for different podcasts. So I want your opinion, Scotty, and Nico Raskin. What would you do with Nico Raskin at this moment in time if you were Russell Martin?
Well, I don't think I need to put my Russell Martin hat on for this. On one hand, you've got an extremely talented footballer who you want to see succeed. You know what he can do on the pitch. If we actually look at it objectively, since he signed, I think we've had about 4 good months out of him. The rest of the time, he's flattered to deceive. He's obviously hit that run. He's got into the Belgian team. And I think his opinion and ego is inflated somewhat. And I think it was already inflated beforehand. And I don't think he's shying coming forward. So I think he's probably ruffled a few feathers, particularly with the start of the season that we've had, and it's not gone the right way. I've heard, I won't name sources, but fairly senior people haven't actually got very many positive things to actually say about his personality. And I'm of the mindset that as a football club anyway, we need to make the most of our assets from a playing perspective and a financial perspective. I think that's just common sense and it makes sense. I don't necessarily buy into everything that Nico says, particularly in the press and what he's come out with recently saying, love Rangers, want to be there, etc., etc. I think as soon as a big club comes in, he's out the door as fast as he possibly can. I don't think it's quite materialised for him yet. And I also think that he's potentially caused a few problems within the dressing room. And regardless of whether you're Russell Martin, Philippe Clement, even Michael Beale, Barry Ferguson, you don't need those characters when you're trying to build something and you're trying to get momentum and you're trying to get an idea and a philosophy. And if all you're getting is pushback, saying it's wrong or it should be doing this way, it's not conducive to our solid footballing environment. And we need stability, and that's exactly what we need. We need everyone pulling together, whether you have personal feelings and buy into it or not. And alluded to what Kevin Thirlwell's interview said, that they're going to have a sit-down chat with Nico. Sounds like it's not just a Russell Martin thing, but potentially a hierarchy thing. So I want him to succeed as a footballer. I absolutely love him as a footballer. As a person, I don't know him, but if he's not pulling his weight, I don't care who's in charge. Or if he's outspoken, I don't care who's in charge. When you're a Rangers player, you behave like a Rangers player. I'm not saying you don't contest, you don't fight, but you have to do it in the correct manner. And that's what we all want.
As you're kind of spotting what you see, none of us really know what's going on behind the scenes. You hear different things from different people, but unless we're in that conversation that's happening at the time. I don't really know. What was your opinion, William, and Nico Raskin? Do you think the same as Scotty, or would you think differently?
See, it's difficult. I mean, it's because we don't really know what's really happened. It's so difficult to understand if it's an issue between the manager and the player, if there's issues even higher than that, potentially if there's been issues with Felwell. I think for me, at the end of the day, I'm a kind of strong opinion of the best players need to be out in the pitch. And at the end of the day, that's where Rangers are going to get their resale for Nico Raskin if he's out in the pitch. Whereas if he's going to sit in the stand for the next 3 or 4 months, it's a waste of his career. It's a waste of us having a fantastic footballer. And it totally devalues what we've worked hard to try and get out of him, which is to sell him for a good amount of money. So it's a really difficult situation. But see, at the end of the day, they just need to get round the table and just say, look, let's just get on with it now until the 1st of January. Let's get all the wheels rolling at the same time. Let's get back to winning ways. Let's try and get some success on the pitch. And then in the 1st of January, if you've had a good last 3.5, 4 months and an offer comes in that's acceptable to you and to us, then we can part ways and that's the end of it. Because it feels like that's what's got to happen. Whether that's in January or next summer, it kind of feels like it is only a matter of time, because if he's not willing to sign a new contract, then Rangers obviously have to make that decision for him, in all honesty, because we can't afford to let him go for free.
Yeah, no, I understand that. And by all accounts, I've heard for people he was offered a contract and it was removed. So I don't know if that's true either. He was going to sign another contract, but I don't know if that's gospel either. So it's one of the things. But I do agree, Nico on the park's probably better for us than he is off the park. I mean, he still has a lot of flaws to his game. He needs to add other things to his game. But when he's in our team, we perform better. And I get the kickback. Every footballer does it, I think. Years ago, like us, you'll remember. I mean, it was Walter Smith probably had a lot tougher process to deal with, but he dealt with it like that. Whereas nowadays, it's more people get offended more. Maybe managers kind of take the same kind of players fighting back at them. So, I mean, Barry Ferguson, Scotty seem to deal with him in a better manner. Do you know what I mean? Barry get probably, to be fair to Barry, he'd probably get the best out of him. Nobody else did.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. But I also think Barry Ferguson has probably got two sides to him as well, in terms of he'd be very good, having learnt as a player, to show what needs to be shown from a public perception. And he will make sure, like Walter Smith would, anything that needs to be handled indoors is kept indoors. It's all kept in-house. I don't think Russell Martin is very good at that. Well, he's not. He's actually just shown he's not, because he's, like, within his first couple of weeks, he's thrown players under the bus. He's made comments about players in press conferences, etc., etc. And I don't know Nico Raskin's personality and what he needs from a manager. I don't know what if there's anything going on behind closed doors with Barry Ferguson as a manager, but again, when you look at Ferguson's results, they weren't exactly great. So there's still fundamental problems with the team. If it was something that how they were lined up and they weren't all pulling together, that's what it certainly looked like. That's what it's felt like for the last, well, since Gerrard basically, and start of Gio. So, yeah, there's a lot of issues that I feel that we need to get a reset from. And I think that's actually happening. And you can see that with the turnover of players. So fingers crossed we get to January and all this is resolved. I don't think it's resolved with Nico Raskin being a Rangers player post-January.
We're just going to Russell Martin here. William, I mean, I remember before he went to the club, I listened to, I don't know who it was interviewing, this journalist for Southampton, and he was saying that Russell Martin, when he plays, gets the football right, it's very exciting to watch, but you do concede a lot of goals. But the one thing he said a few times, the journalist, was he's a very good manager, whereas Scotty's just alluded to there, he's fucked that up already. So what's your opinion, Russell Martin? Because I can agree with Scotty. Maybe managing the English game is nothing to managing up here.
Yeah, I mean, up here, you've almost got to keep all the skeletons in the closet, haven't you, up here? Because as soon as you tell somebody about something, that's it. Like, there's no coming back from it. And like you see social media up here. I mean, it's on another level. I mean, after the first game of the season against Motherwell, he basically threw Tav and Raskin under the bus within seconds of the final whistle, which at the end of the day, that was his prerogative to say that. But then he's had to kind of go back cap in hand and put Tav back in the team because Max Aarons has had such a poor start to the season. I think it's clear that the midfield is still lacking something because Joe Rothwell really hasn't hit the levels that many of us thought he would. He's trying to have different players in there. We've had Asgard, we've had Barron, we've had Diamandi, we've had Raskin, we've had Rothwell. But we don't seem to have found that perfect kind of duo or trio, depending on how we're going to set up. So I think he has to be sensible now, what he says between now and the start of January. Because see if he kind of peeves players off between now and January and they sit in the stand, that's not a good thing for Rangers at all in any shape or form. And I think he's also got to admit that some of the signings that he has brought in haven't really improved us from what we've seen so far. So that would be a concern. Because I think everybody can see that maybe Tav's coming to the end of his career in some shape or form, but he still looks a far better player than Max Aarons. So he can't really get back to Max Aarons, I don't think, anytime soon. And I think you've got to say that putting Rothwell in against Hearts or Hibs would probably be a mistake. I think that midfield has to have legs in it. I think we need to be able to get up and down the pitch. And if you're talking about that, it's probably Raskin, Lyle Cameron, and probably one other. So, I mean, that's up to the manager now. He has to get it right, mate. A bit like what Scotty was saying earlier, this is a pivotal next 2 games for him. Because at the end of the day, we lose to Hearts, we're going to be like 9-10 points behind them in the league, which, I mean, that's not a small gap to be chasing down. And then you get knocked out the cup with Hibs. That pressure is unbearable at that point. And I don't think the club would have any other option other than to do what it seems like they don't want to do, which is to sack him.
See, it's quite interesting when you talk about Russell Martin and man manager, and I've heard quite a few people say he's a really good man manager. It's not. I don't believe it's the case that he can come up here and all of a sudden be an arsehole and not be a good guy or a good man manager. I think to begrudgingly you have to give him the benefit of the doubt because I don't agree with his tactics. I just don't see it working, particularly short term. And Rangers' results are a short term thing. You've got to bear in mind the crap that we've gone through with numerous managers over the previous years with the same players. So it can't just be on the manager coming in, being an arsehole and the players don't like him. Maybe it is actually the players' problem. And we were all screaming for it towards the end of last season. Get rid of them all. All of a sudden, Martin comes in, has a problem with a few of the old protagonists. And then all of a sudden, because you don't like Russell Martin, you're jumping into bed with the protagonists, with the guys that you disagree with. I can't get my head around that. It's a case of clear the decks, right? Give Russell Martin the chance to work with guys that want to be here, that want to pull in the same direction and want to move the club forward. Until we actually see that, we've got absolutely no idea whether Russell Martin's tactics could actually work. We genuinely don't, because if they're not singing from the same hymn sheet and you need to have a robust way of playing football, we're not going to win games, and that's down to the players, because we should be able to stick 11 guys in the park. They should have enough desire and energy and hunger to actually go out and win regardless of the formation. It's a really easy, lame excuse to blame the way that we're playing for them not tracking back, not picking up markers, not being in the right position on the pitch. The formation really lends to transitions, moments in possession rather than out of possession. Like the goals that we conceded got bugger all to do with the way that we're playing. That's down to concentration and individual player errors. You can't legislate for like Giga against Bruges. Like, what the hell was that about? You can't legislate for Max Aaron's away to Bruges. Like that you cannot blame that on Russell Martin. Maybe because he picked them, but we're looking at the team sheet. We want these guys to play.
I mean, I totally agree with you in that. I mean, you can see the money spent by the owners this summer has been a big turnover of players, and yeah, you still get 2 or 3 still here from last couple of seasons, but there's been a lot of investment into the squad. And Martin came out, William, and said he watched Rangers last season. He's done his homework on the players, stuff like that. And then they play against Dundee, and he gets kind of confused at Dundee the way they played. But if you've seen last season's games, you'd have noticed that. And then he says, you get Middlesbrough, you mentioned Managerial. A couple other games they came out and kind of lambasted players. And in my opinion, you can only do that so much. Then they stop listening to you. And then he's asking and he's saying things like, it's not the end of the world when you draw maybe with St Martin, and in his time you have to suffer pain. This isn't giving him any rope to play with, because all these things he's saying is making Rangers fans go, I don't want to be hearing this, because you want in the day you just want results. And I do feel if he'd beat Motherwell and Dundee, even if they were bad, it gives him that extra breathing space, because they've got the points on the board. But because he's not, and he's saying these things, I don't know. I agree with you 2 years. I don't know if he'll get the time, especially when the next 2 games come up. So, what's your opinion? Do you think he's come in with Jenny's from Ibrox, even though he's played here for a very small time, and he said he studied Rangers? Do you think he's come in kind of, let's say, blindfolded, but thinking it was going to be a lot easier than it actually is?
I don't think so, because I think he knew when he got the job he probably wasn't the person that most fans wanted. So I think he already knew when he walked in the door he probably had some work to do to impress the support. Most people look at pre-season and don't take a lot from it. I'm not a big pre-season guy. I never have been. I don't really take a lot of interest in it, in all honesty. But I did go to the 2 games. But the worry for me is that we're still not really seeing enough of a style from him. And we don't really seem to create a lot of chances. That's probably the most worrying thing. Because even under Clement, when at times we were quite kind of rigid and we didn't look as though we were creating a lot of chances, we still seem to create enough to score goals. Under Russell Martin, I mean, we've only scored 3 goals in 4 games, which must be as low a start as Rangers have had to a league season. And yet again, we keep conceding really poor goals. And Scotty's right. Some of the goals are just, it's like concentration switching off all the time. I mean, if you look at the first goal of the season against Motherwell, they had like 3 or 4 glorious chances before that they should have scored, and we didn't seem to learn from it, and then we end up losing the goal. The Dundee goal, we were warned in the first half when they hit the woodwork, and we still didn't pick up in the second half, and we lose a goal from it. And if you look at the St Mirren game, yet again, it's just really poor. The Bruges game, I mean, if you actually showed that to like school kids, some of the defending in that game, you would be embarrassed. So at some point, along with the manager, the players need to look at that and go, I'm an international. You know, he gets a full international. So is John Souttar. Obviously, Cornelius, obviously, we're just going to get our first sight of him the other night there for Canada. It's not like we're talking about guys that are inexperienced and don't understand what it takes to win games of football. I think these next 2 games are absolutely paramount for the manager and the players. I think we need to see a big reaction again in the Hearts game, because Hearts are going to come here full of confidence. Like, Hearts are going to think, most people think we're probably going to get beat here anyway, so we'll come and have a go. And if they do come and have a go and we lose the first goal, you know what Ibrox can be like when you lose an early goal. You know, like the walls start to close in pretty quickly, and the players, I don't know if some of them have realised yet how big a club Rangers are, because see, the pressure's on these guys almost instantly as soon as they walk through the door. I mean, there's some guys have already been written off, let's be honest about it. Some guys have already looked at players and went, he's just not going to cut it at Rangers, which is pretty mad, really. It is mad. But that's the nature of football in Scotland when you play for Rangers or Celtic. You don't get a season to settle in. You get maybe a couple of games, and if you're not already... Yeah, look, mate, it's crazy. See, the reality is, see, whether we like it or not, we do need stability at the football club. We do need to stop sacking managers. We do need to stop having squad rotations every year where like 15 guys are going out the door and 12 are coming in. It's felt like we've done that every year for the last 3 or 4 years, and that's not a way to run a football club. It's not a way to be successful. Most of the best clubs in Europe don't have a huge turnover of players, and we do it every single year. And if Russell Martin is sacked, do you think the next manager's going to walk in and go, this is a pretty good squad, I'm going to keep it together? That just doesn't happen under a new manager. You'll walk in the door and then Rangers are left with another 6 or 7 guys on 3-4 year contracts who we might struggle to move on. And that's
right,
Willie. That's how it is.
Taking account to what you just said, how long do you give it?
I mean, I think it's really difficult, right? But I think you should be given until at least the end of the year to see where we are. But I think if you ask most of the people that go to the games up here, he's probably got Hearts and Hibs.
Right. So you've given the Rangers answer, but what about you?
I think we should give him a go for at least a couple of months and see where we are.
I'm not buying
because we need to. No, I do. I feel like we need to see if, now that the window's closed, if we can get up and running and playing. Because at the end of the day, really, it seems less like 1 or 2 players go to a club in a random country now. Most of the windows are closed, so like nobody's going anywhere. So it's one of those ones. See, if you're not happy, shut the hell up until January. Obviously, just get out in the pitch and do what you've got to do. Like, this isn't about Nico Raskin. It's not about James Tavernier, Joe Rothwell, Max Aarons. It doesn't matter. This is about Rangers. And we need to show that between now and the end of this year that we are a good team and that we can create chances and that we can score goals and we can run over the top of teams and we can do what the expectation is when they get out in that pitch. But I do fear for them. And that's why I kind of keep repeating that, because like, social media is a pretty poisonous place at times, and I do believe that, see if we don't somehow manage to beat Hearts and Hibs, I do think the pressure will be so much on him that I don't know if he can come back. Because the fact he's already getting booed after a couple of games in the season, it's not like the patience is going to get better, is it? I mean, that's reality. Like, being at Rangers now, the pressure is just, it's so high. And as I say, without kind of repeating myself, I think the fact he wasn't wanted by a lot of the fan base, I think the patience was even lower than what it would have been with certain other people. And I think the way that maybe he's spoken certain press conferences and the way that he's dealt with things, I don't think that's went down well. And then they're picking on Nico Raskin, who is a fan's favourite, isn't he? So you've picked on if he picked on somebody else that nobody cared about, they maybe would sit and go, all right, we don't really care. But
I don't see him actually like singling them out or picking on him.
No.
I think it's with reason. He hasn't. It's not like he hasn't given him a reason to do it. It's not like Nico Raskin's just walked in and he's gone, "Hey, you're the fans' favourite. I'm going to make an example out of you." He's done it with a reason, because he's like, right, you're not pulling your weight. You're a gobby shite bag. I need to lay down the law because I'm the manager. And it's like, you tell me any other manager that wouldn't do that, and then I'm telling you an extremely weak manager. So he's had to do that. And that's the frustrating thing. And I think just as many fingers need to be pointed at Nico Raskin for putting a new manager in that situation in the first place, when he should be a leader in the group, not a dissenter. And there's a massive difference, because a dissenter is going to influence people. It's going to cause a poisonous dressing room. It's going to cause division. And then we're going to go back to square one. But that division will remain. It will always remain. So therefore, that needs to be rooted and dealt with. And hopefully that's what they're doing. In terms of like Russell Martin, he's got to come out like in probably the next game. And it's like it really should have been like the cup game, and he's got to come out and put in a stellar, perfect performance, this team. And it needs to win like 4 or 5-0 for people to stop them in their tracks and go, hold on, he might actually know what he's doing. That glimmer of hope. Because at the moment, if we scrape even a 1-0 win, fans will be going, He's just buying time.
I mean, Scotty changed it against Celtic. Right, we changed the way we played against Celtic. Not everybody's saying what we play, how to play. Take away the pausing game night because we're really good for an hour. I think that dropped off, but we were really good that night. But apart from that, we have struggled. But against Celtic, he did change it. He went to the middle of the park instead of going one with the two forward players. So we were more. We didn't look like we were going to concede the goals in that. They were rotten, but so were we. And it finished up like a game that nobody was caring about the result. Both of them were happy with a point, I thought. But he did change it away, so he has adapted. He did show he can adapt. But even though he's come out and said before he sticks to these formations, but he does show he can adapt if he has to.
Well,
So,
he has already.
Hands on side.
If you look at the first game, competitive game, like against Panathinaikos at Ibrox, we had that weird situation where Max Aarons kept picking up the ball in the middle of the park and getting caught. But you could see what he was trying to do. Right, you're going to draw out the central midfield, you're going to lay it off, pass the ball wide with pace, and then all of a sudden you've got acres of space in the midfield. And I was really excited by that because that's a clear identity and a clear tactic of what we're doing. And then the next game he's totally abandoned it because it didn't quite work because Max Aaron kept getting caught on the ball, and then we were on the back foot the majority of the first half. And then we've kind of sailed through this non-event of a aimless passing again. And it's almost like, right, we're trying to find our feet with the ball. We're going to have to learn to walk before we can run, i.e. play the basics. And then we come to the Celtic game and he's changed again. And I don't know about you guys, but it was like these guys had, again, been set out in a formation, a robust structure, but these guys had never actually played football before. They could follow instructions but never play football because they could, some of the passing was just embarrassing. Simple passes just played out of the park. So I beside myself watching that.
Yeah. Look, it was a poor game. I mean,
how long do you think he's got Scotty then?
Say that again?
How long do you think Russell Martin has? You know, you asked William that, and William was trying to give a Rangers answer and a William answer, but how long would you say he has? Does he get the time that Dale was saying he's getting, or does he go quicker if he loses?
I think as a football club, and any strong leadership at a football club is able to, in a way, silence or be kind of deaf to the noise that's going on, because a lot of it is noise and some of it is bordering on hysteria, for as long as possible, because you need to give them as long as possible. But see, that hysteria gets louder and louder and louder, and people join it. And I think we're all going to be guilty of it. If we lose to Hearts and we lose to Hibs, we're going to be screaming, get him out. Because unfortunately for us, and history doesn't often lie, we've seen this story before. And it's going to take a mammoth task to turn it around from that point, having only been in the job for so long. Because then we're now thinking in territory, well, he hasn't actually been in the club long enough to put in an imprint. So therefore, he's quite easy just to wipe clean and get rid of him. So it's one of those things. Either you pull the trigger after Hibs, or you're keeping him for the season. It can't be we get into February, sack a manager and try again.
No, I understand that. But William, I mean, you know yourself, every game it's Russian roulette. He needs 3 points. Doesn't get 3 points, then he could be facing the bullet basically. But how long do Rangers give him? Because you look at what's going on across the city, right? They're kind of in panic mode because of their transfer window, whereas we spent a lot of money. So do we give him time to say it'll turn around? But if he doesn't win the league, do you maybe think about it then? Because a lot of players have command, and you do need time for the players to bed down to a system. We all know that. But as in Scotland's totally different from another league. Doesn't matter how good the league is or the quality of the league is. It's different. It's different up in Glasgow when you're playing football, because if you finish second, you feel that's the way it is. It doesn't really matter what anybody says. So does he get this full season, or we all know that if if Derek McInnes comes in the Hearts and he beats us, then it could be curtains. We hope it isn't, but because I do feel from him in a way, right? I don't particularly. I think he's quite an arrogant guy, but I also think looking at his interviews, looking at him, I think he is quite. I don't think he expected it to be as full on as it has been. He's only 39 years old, so I don't think he's expected it to be like it has been, because he's been at Southampton and he's been at Swansea. Good big clubs in their own right, but the pressure's totally different. You can draw, you can get beat, and you can walk it away and say, right, we'll try next week. But at Rangers, it's totally different. Martin Smith always said it's people invest money into Rangers, they do anything else in their own life. It's Rangers, and then it's the rest of your life, but Rangers always come first. So I think he is kind of treading as in he doesn't know what to do best for himself, because he is scared to get the chop very, very early in his career.
Yeah, look, football's more brutal now than it's ever been when you look at the sackings of managers. I mean, in some ways now, like, players have got so much power that they can get managers sacked. But I've seen in the past, nobody would have stepped out of line with Walter Smith, because they would have been probably pinned up against the wall within about 10 seconds, and then Archie Knox would have been throwing the punches. So, whereas you can't do that now. Like, it's not like modern football's changed, and you could argue in a lot of ways it's not helped the game, it's not bettered the game, it's not improved the game. And when you look at like player power now, it is massive. And it only takes, as Scotty said earlier, it only takes one or two people in his dressing room to really turn things really quickly. And that's why it's important that the manager has everybody on side. That's why I do think that when all the players come back from international duty, I think you should just have a team meeting and just sit there and say, look, I know some of you guys might not be happy. I understand that it's not been the start to the season we all wanted. But look, let's get out in the pitch and let's show people that we're a good team. Because at the end of the day, I don't genuinely believe that any of the players in that dressing room want the manager to fail. Because at the end of the day, that's a bad look on them as well, given most of them are only just in the door. And the sort of brutal side of football is, and yet again, I don't want to see him sacked. I think I've said that openly to like a lot of people. I just think that the pressure up here, it will build and build and build to a point where the ownership, for all they are, in my opinion, a very strong ownership group, and I think they will back him for as long as they can. When you start seeing things outside the stadium, and you maybe get marches outside the stadium, and all the chants starting, things like that of the manager being sacked, and it's so difficult to turn that around. And especially at Rangers, usually once those small things start to kind of break through, it's only a matter of time. We've seen it with Michael Beale, we've seen it with Philip Clement, and the way that it's going for Russell Martin right now, it's going to need to see a massive, massive turnaround. And at the end of the day, see, as a fan, I just want to see the team win. That's the reality of it, isn't it? Like, that's what we all want. We just want to see the team be successful. But I think, unfortunately for Russell Martin, he got a job that he wanted, but I'm not so sure a lot of the fan base wanted him to get it. And the first chance that they've had to go after him, this is where it is now. And since then, it's not really got any better, isn't it? You know, with the league games, it's not been very good so far. The lack of points on the board don't look great. And it always looks worse when you throw in that Bruges away performance, which, you know, there's just no hiding place from that, unfortunately, as a football fan. And I think at a lot of other clubs, that one defeat against Bruges might have been enough to see him lose his job. And I think if you ask most people who were at the game that night, or most of the people that watched it on television, felt like we were just waiting for that news to come out. Obviously, it's not. He's still here after the international break. So, look, we need to get behind the team. We need to get behind the manager and hope that things can turn. But it's certainly not going to be an easy thing to do, because I think a lot of people have already made their decision on it. And a bit like player judgments, like the guy behind me in a couple of rows still gives the same abuse to the same players, even though, you know, somebody could have a 9 out of 10 performance, but because he doesn't like them, that's the end of it. And I think that's possibly the problem the manager's got.
You're on mute.
On Kevin Thelwell, Scotty, he's come out in an interview. I don't know if you heard that. I thought it was just a lot of saying what he kind of had to say, but I don't think he came out with anything really new. What did you make of that? And also, he's been criticised as well for a lot of his purchases. Him and Purdy and Stewart buying from England, because a lot of folk don't see there being value for money down in England.
Imagine if I didn't watch the interview. I'll be struggling around how to answer that question. No, I didn't.
I know you will.
So it's one of those things, because you listen and you know you're being fed almost like corporate lingo, right? So you really want to be objective and go, don't buy it, don't buy it, don't buy into it. He's just trying to tell you what you want to hear, and it is true. But I actually thought he came across really well, and I think it was more right him trying to articulate, I do get it, I know we need to win. Like, running a football club and starting from scratch is not easy. It's not gone the way that we wanted. We want to win every game. We know that. And although we know that, it is also good for him to say that and articulate that in the way that he did. And we've got to take that leap of faith and trust everything that he says, and that they're working to get that. But at the end of the day, he's not picking the team. He's not a player on the park. He's just got the resources to actually make the football club try and tick in the best way possible. And he's also right in terms of what he said about signing players from the English market. Well, I would encourage any manager coming into a football club, first thing to do, get your generals, right? Get the players that you know, get the players that you can trust in the team with you, and you know what they can do. Sadly for Russell Martin, one of them looks like he smokes 20 fags in the dressing room before he goes out on the pitch, and the other one looks like a lost little boy at right back or left back or wherever he plays. I have been really impressed with Magoma. I think he's just got better and better every time he's played. So really excited to watch him for the rest of the season. I'm going to keep my opinion on Max Aarons to myself. Just a little bit disappointed there. And Joe Rothwell, just shave your head, man. Stop trying to float around the middle of the park like Pirlo. Get us all on side. But I don't begrudge them shopping in the English market for the fact that we haven't actually spent too much money in the English market, with the exception of the boy from Everton. I've got to caveat that. But I think that's very, very different in terms of what shopping in the English market is. That signing in particular, I'm going to withhold judgment and say it's a giant waste of money, because it could be an absolute masterstroke. If you look from the profile of the footballer that he is, and the general direction of travel of the footballer, where it's going, and the profile of what all the players the big clubs want, it's an appropriate gamble to take if those with the money are willing to take it, because it's not our money anymore. These guys are putting in their own serious wealth now, and that could pay dividends. I'm not going to judge someone on Everton over the last 2 years, and if you do, you might as well judge any player, Hamza Igaman, on our last 2 years, because I don't think that bears any sort of continuity or reference, because Everton have been an absolute basket case, especially going forward, and that isn't going to change from Sean Dyche to David Moyes, and that would be really unfair, especially when Nathan Patterson was on the bench behind Seamus Coleman. So if you want to pick and choose your battles, you can't necessarily say this boy's a dud, why are we spending 10 million quid on him? I think you've just got to trust the process and trust these guys who have all come with a solid reputation for doing good jobs at their respective clubs previously.
No, they have, especially Joe Rothwell. I see him quite a few times at Blackburn, especially at Leeds last season. I watched a lot of Leeds, and he always looked busy in the middle of the park. He always looked like he had a forward pass. And that's what I've not seen really here, but he always looked like when he had the ball, his first instinct was to go forward with the pass, try and go through the line to create something, whereas his first instinct is to go that way or back the way, so I don't know.
Neat and tidy.
Yeah.
He's like in his head is just like, right, keep it neat and tidy, and he's forgetting the fundamentals of actually what makes you stand out as a footballer.
Yeah.
And honestly, it makes it 10 times worse that he's got that kind of like Pirlo floppy hair and it's like bouncing about in the middle of the pitch. And I'm like, you're nowhere near the ball. Like, you're reading the game just seems off and it just draws attention to him. He's better off just shaving his head and just having a bit more about him.
Can you get the Gattuso look?
All right, well that's my tactical input for Joe Rothwell. It's like, shave your head, man. Just got.
Well, we brought in 13 players, and obviously there's been a few, quite more than a few left, especially at the goal area. Dessers, Agaman, and obviously Cherny. So that's a lot of goals you've lost. I mean, obviously we signed Miovski, I think it's a really good sign. The boy Scotty mentioned, Everton. Nobody really knows what this kid can do, but it's a lot of money for us. Have you seen the signings so far coming in and the ones leaving? Obviously, it's a big turnover. Do you see some of these players exciting? I know we've got 4 in loan, but
Yeah.
you have to use loan deals. Every club does, even big clubs do it.
I think the big concern is just the loss of the amount of goals. You add in Cherny into that, along with Dessers and Eagleman. They scored a huge amount of our goals last year. And yeah, I mean, it's just, I do think Miovski, I think I said that to you when we obviously kind of met up last week for a chat or whatever, and I think Miovski could be a very, very good signing for us. I think he's probably one of the shrewdest signings of the summer out of all the players we've signed. I think once Asgard settles in, I think he'll be a good player, because see, when you look at Asgard, he's got all the physical attributes that should make him a good player in Scotland. So if he can just settle down and play, I think he'll be okay. Yeah, again, the young lad from Everton, we don't really know. We just don't know. He could turn into an unbelievable player and we've got it all wrong, or it could go really badly wrong and we're left with a guy that's cost us a lot of money. Because there's no middle ground up here.
Yeah, that's not cool, Willie.
Yeah, look, I mean, that's the brutal thing up here, isn't it? Like, there is no, like, it's in Scotland, you're either a good player or you're a shit player. That's just how it is in Scotland. There is no middle ground. Like you can't just have a normal guy that plays well every week and has a 6 or a 7. You know, like that just... See, this is the thing. It's like, I do believe you need 4 or 5 guys in the team who are just consistent. You know, they do their job, they're in the team there. But then, like, you've got to have, like, your guys that will create, that will open the game up, that can score goals, that have got a bit of pace, a bit of quality. But you look at the majority of teams these days, there's a lot of guys in a lot of teams, even at the top level, who are very, very steady and reliable players. And that's what they're in the team to do. They're there to do that job. And a bit like what Scotty's saying about Rothwell. I mean, I've seen Rothwell quite a few times on television last year, and it felt like every time he got the ball, the first thing he was always looking to do was to pass it forward, even if it was just 5 or 10 yards, and it opened up space ahead of him. And, you know, whereas this year he just looks scared. He looks like he's actually scared to make a pass forward. And a bit like the rest of the team, I mean, we must have about 1 million passes between the full-backs and the centre-halves this year. Because we never really seem... It's like sideways, back to the goalie, back to the centre-half, back to the full-back, or like somebody's pressing us back again. No Rangers team should be doing that. Because see, at the end of the day, the only way to hurt the opposition is to get the ball up the pitch. And we need to get like Gassama on the ball more. We need to get Antman on the ball, or Mikey Moore, or Finlay Curtis, or whether it's Miovski, or... Like, we just need to get our better players on the ball at the higher end of the pitch. Because so far we've shown that we struggle to actually hurt the opposition with quality.
Mm.
And I can't understand. I mean, like, the Dundee game was probably the big one we spoke about, wasn't it? That Russell Martin actually, I don't know if he just didn't expect Dundee to come and play the way they did, but I think everybody in Ibrox thought he was a bit bonkers if he didn't think that. I mean, like, Stephen Presley in the first game of the season against Hibs had like a back 8 at home. So what did he think he was going to do when he came to Ibrox? Did he think he was going to open up and play like 4-3-3 or something? Because I don't think anybody in the stands thought he was going to do that. And like, you play into Dundee's hands, like, you give them a couple of cheap free kicks, couple of cheap corners, and then you end up losing a goal from it. And then it felt like we actually reacted well. See, when we went down to 10 men, we actually created more chances with 10 men than we did with 11. Which, because Dundee didn't really want to come out. Like, they were quite happy at 1-0, even though they had the extra man, they'd no real desire to come out. And if Cyril Dessers had ended up being onside, you could actually could have won that game 2-1 with 10 men, which is wild given how poor we were for long spells of that game.
It's that extra man. It's that extra pass.
That's the thing. Like, see, with 10 men, it was almost as though they thought they had to get the ball forward quicker, or they had to get the ball to the wide man. Because I don't know how many times like Gassama touched that ball in a 15-20 minute spell. Because that was all we were doing, was just driving the ball into Gassama. And eventually he's the one that wins the penalty, obviously. But I think it's important now that we do have width in the team, because I think that's something we've been screaming about for a long time as a support. And I think, as like the two of you have already commented on, the manager's been backed in the marketplace. You know, even these loan guys have probably cost us a 7-figure fee. So it's not like the manager's not had the backing. You know, we've been out and, you know, we've gave him Mikey Moore. He's obviously paid money for Gassama. We've paid really good money for Antman. Obviously, Cortez deal was already done before they came in, but it never felt like he was going to be utilised. He's now been out on loan. But you do still have Finlay Curtis there, who actually looks like the one who might actually score goals because he's prepared to take a shot on. But I just really want to see us play well on Saturday. I want to see us turn up, play well, win the game. Everybody leaves happy. Russell doesn't need to come out after the match and have a go at a player. He can actually just answer some normal questions in the press conference, and we can all walk away and think, well, that was quite a good performance. And I would actually love to just talk about Rangers in a positive way, because it doesn't feel like we've really done that this season so far, and I find that hurtful, because I'm not a negative person by any stretch of the imagination. I would always rather talk about positivity and what we're doing well, but unfortunately we've not seen enough of that this season so far.
Not just this season, Will. But,
yeah, I know somewhere in a parallel universe there's a really positive Willie with a big smile on his face talking positively about Rangers.
Mate, honestly, I would love nothing more than us to go and win the next 5, 6, 7 games. I genuinely wouldn't be annoyed that the manager's not been sacked, or that... We see if Nico Raskin doesn't play the next 7 games and Rangers win, then people will forget about Nico Raskin quite quickly, because that's the brutal nature of the game, isn't it? It's like sort of once you're forgotten about, nobody cares. But I just want to see us get back.
I don't care who the manager is or who the players are, as long as Rangers are winning.
That, mate, look, like, see, I've grew up in that era where, I mean, like, what were Smith's teams weren't the best to watch? You know, like, we weren't really the prettiest of teams. If what we had was like individual brilliance or individual geniuses, like Laudrup and Gascoigne, Mark Walters could open up a game, Peter Hoostra could open up a game with something special. You know, we always had these maverick guys who could come in and do something. Advocat took it to another level, didn't he? I mean, you were signing guys for everywhere who were genuine top players. And like, you could see it on the pitch, you know, your Van Bronckhorst, your Alberts, your Newmans, etc. I mean, you could go through the whole team, to be fair. But bizarrely, during that Advocat era, one of our best ever signings was Rod Wallace, who was basically a guy we got for free. He was unbelievable for us while he was here. Even Claudio Reyna, like £1 million. Two guy was like £1 million. Stefan Kloss was less than $1 million. So it wasn't always the big spending guys that did well. So it's interesting. Look, football will always be about opinions. I just really want us to get back to playing well and winning games. That's my big hope for the next couple of months. And I don't want to be coming on to podcasts this continually saying I want the manager sacked, because that's not a nice thing for anybody.
No, it's got to be. We have invested in the team heavily, but especially with forward-thinking players. So do you think Russell Martin will change it in any way? Do you think Russell Martin will change it anyway, so he'd go more attacking? Because he's brought in wide men. They've got 2 strikers now. They've got Asgard, who can play attack midfield. I really feel it does like to get forward, even though I don't think he can last 90 minutes. So we've got guys who like to go that way. And that's the way you win games in Scotland. You attack other teams.
Yeah, we put them on the park, but we don't seem to have the formula to... Or maybe there's too much of a formula and there's too much of a rigid way of playing football.
Is he overcoaching then?
Pardon?
Is it overcoaching? giving too much information? Can football players?
I don't think it's too much info. Yes and no. You know that way where it's now like Mikey Moore or Ant-Man will pick the ball up on the wing, and it's like they're making an instant decision in their head, right? What's the probability of my success here, right? If I take him on, what's the probability of me getting down to the byline and crossing it in? What does the manager want me to do? And he's like, right, well, I thought about it too long now. I've got to pass the ball back. The ball will go around and go to Gassama. And it's like the same thing will go through his head. These guys are young guys. They should just be playing on instinct. They should be playing without fear because they don't have that match experience holding them back of failure in those situations. But it kind of feels like they're led by fear. And I think that's usually what we'd see at Ibrox. A, because we're usually playing against a team parking the bus. And B, they've got the crowd on their back and they're scared to make a wrong move. That's historically what we've seen. But it shouldn't be happening to these guys. They should be coming in fresh, new, with the will and desire to make a difference, make a name for themselves, make themselves a star, and be a bit greedy, but with reason. But you see, it's a fine line when it comes to decision making. And I just don't feel that we've clicked when we're making the decisions or getting the correct decisions. Whether it's taking a shot on from the edge of the box or not taking the shot, that's still the decision. And it's like, it just feels a little bit hesitant, a little bit overthought. I'm not sure if it's overcoached because, I mean, I don't know Russell Martin. I don't know the way he plays, but it could be just a case of, right, what we want to do with our team is manipulate our opposition when we have the ball so we can get the ball into certain areas so we can do X, Y, Z. But then as a player, if you start overthinking what you're doing because you're feeling the pressure, then that's a level of, there's no freedom there, is there? And that's just what it feels like. And people are going, oh, well, look at Ant-Man from the first game to where he is now. But Ant-Man's probably never had that amount of pressure put on him before as a footballer. And all of a sudden, a couple of negative results, albeit not directed at him, and he start like feeling the pressure. Shit, I've got to do something here. I don't want to make an error. I don't want to do the wrong thing. I don't want to take on my man and lose the ball and have the crowd growing at me and then be caught in the counter attack. So then you take the easy option, which is just the recycling of the ball or the retention of the ball. And we've seen it for so long. And you're just hoping that we get some momentum from somewhere. And do you know what? Hearts isn't necessarily a bad team to actually come and play because they're going to give us a game. They're not going to park the bus, although you've got half an eye on Derek McInnes and that's exactly what he's going to do, and he's going to frustrate us because he knows that he's got better quality players to be able to do that. But they have to come out a bit more because they will also be spending blood, which should lead to spaces and opportunities. And we're not playing against Celtic, so we're not playing against a better team than the game that we had. So it's like, right, we will have more opportunities and hopefully we can take them and hopefully we can get some positivity going.
No, I can see that. And William, I mean, we're talking about players might be playing within themselves, right? Pretty much for a reason. But the last, against Dundee, against Alloa, must have been a good maybe 6, 7, maybe even probably more than that, probably about 10 times. John Souttar tries that pass, running with the ball, and tries to play it through an eye immediately to the striker. Yeah. He either fails to reach him, or the striker at the time Dessers fails to control it. But he constantly tried it. Why? Why is it not an option?
You can only imagine that's what they've been told to do in training. But the problem is, when it doesn't work the first couple of times, you maybe want to change it up so that it's not as obvious that that's what you're trying to do every single time.
I just feel like it's not John Souttar's game either, Willie, but...
No, it's not. I mean, it's funny, like you look at, I mean, obviously watched a little bit of the Denmark game with Scotland, and, you know, see if you just ask him to defend, he's a good player. I mean, that's a simple matter of the fact, right? The guy is a good player. I think we're asking him to do too much. Giga looks quite uncomfortable at times when we're trying to ask him to do something like that. maybe Cornelius will come in and be a leader and be more kind of stronger. And I think the fact he's natural on that left side clearly helps us a little bit as well. I think you might find that Giga drops out the team. I think it'll be Suter and Cornelius that will play. And then I think it's Scotty's, you know, I've been really impressed with Magoma since he's come in. He looks like a right good athlete. He can get up and down the pitch. And, you know, him and Tav potentially getting up and down the pitch a little bit more kind of opens the game up for us. I guess think the middle of the park's the big thing at the moment. If we can sort that middle of the park out, I do think we'll be a far better team moving forward. But that's obviously going to come down to what happens in the next 3 or 4 days between the manager, Nico Raskin and Kevin Felwell.
I do think Scotty would do a part if he played a 2 with Asgard in front. It'd be better than playing the 1 with the 2-8s either going that way or that way, and then the fullbacks coming in. And I think that's too confusing for some of our players. So
I think that's really confusing for me too.
the 2 in the pivot, even Raskin one of my, if he does come back, if not, then you've got Cameron and you've got Barron, you've also got Dio. I thought done okay, but I think you need to play Asgard because I think Asgard's got so much talent. I've seen quite a lot of him, but I feel he's getting judged very early, as we all said. He's getting a game and a half, and people are saying, no, he's rotten. He's not good enough, but I think he gets something there. But I think you have to play his strengths and not up front like he did against someone.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how all these players are going to fit in and where their best attributes are, because being brutally honest, I'd never really heard of Asgard before he came. I've not seen too much of him. What I have seen is a guy that's probably a bit slow to start, and I think is a bit. It doesn't feel like he's got one of them styles that it feels like he's never sprinting. He's never sprinted before in his life.
He's a lazy player, Scott. Yes.
And it's going to frustrate the life out of me, because the same as like either watching Zungu, Carlos Pena, who else in the middle of the park, just I just need more. I need more off the ball running. Not headless running, but see every now and again like a 20-yard burst or a sprint off the ball through the lines, and I don't think I'm going to get that from him. And I've not really seen enough of him on the ball, you know, with the ball at his feet, trying to do something to make me think he's got that in his locker. I'm sure he has, but I've not seen it because I've never actually watched him play before Rangers either. Interestingly enough, I know a guy who's a Luton Town fan, and he was like, this guy's a baller. You've signed a really, really good player. And I'm like, can you get on the phone and tell him to turn up? So, like, these guys are coming with glowing references. And we just need to find a rhythm. We need to find continuity. We need to find a midfield that works. It might have Dio in it. It might have Raskin in it. It might not have either in it. I don't really care as long as it works. For all I care, I could see a middle 3 of Barron, Cameron, and Asgard, and I'd be really, really happy with that if that Rangers team are winning. I couldn't give a monkey's how they play as long as the team wins, and they're doing it well.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I don't really care. I said before, I don't care who's playing, who the manager is. It's just when you're winning something and challenging again, that's all I want to see. But that's just about finished for the night. So just before we go, I want to come to you, William, about Leon King. Leon's away to United, and I don't think he'll be back because his contract runs out at the end of the season. So just for your thoughts on Leon's time at Rangers, and he's had his ups and he's had his downs, but he's been a good servant.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a roller coaster for Leon, isn't it? You know, he obviously was kind of highly sought after as a 15, 16-year-old. Ended up playing really early on in the Champions League. Obviously did quite well under Gio. You know, he got quite a lot of opportunities. Since then, it's been tough for him. I do think this loan's a good loan. I think this is a good time for Leon to get out and play. I think it's important that he plays every week so that he can build his confidence up, and hopefully it helps him get a move next summer, because I think, as you've already pointed out, it would seem highly unlikely that he's going to be here beyond the end of the season. But from Leon's perspective, go and play, find your confidence, show other teams that you are a good player and that you can play at a good level, because that's exactly what he needs to do now for the next 8 or 9 months. That he needs to prove everybody that he is the player that a lot of people thought he could become.
Yeah, I think it's sad what's happened to him, but that's what happens a lot about young players, isn't it? They've got high hopes for them and then they don't really go into much, but we've got one at the moment. I'll ask you 2 years opinion on Finlay Curtis. Now, I've said to you before, I've seen quite a lot of him over the last few while, and I think he's the best natural finisher at the club. Obviously, with Simon Yoski now, so that may have changed, but I think on his ability, he's such a clean striker there, ball. He knows where the net is, and he's scored a lot of goals in the academy. And people say it's only an academy, but he knows where the net is. And for me, that's a bonus. If you know where the goal is, doesn't matter what his level is, you can score goals. And I think he's proved it coming into the first team. And I don't know if signing Mikey Moore was a good deal for us. I like Mikey Moore because I've seen him a few times in the Spurs and I thought it's a talent there. But I don't know if that was the right move for us. But what's your thoughts on Finlay Curtis, Scotty?
Is a Rangers boy, Rangers Academy. You just wanted to succeed. You wanted to be in the first 11 every week, being the best player in his position, doing what he can do. He reminds me so much of Chris Burke, like so much. In like that way, he's skillful, really effective, but again, seems to lack like just slightly less than half a yard from being like a top class winger with that pace. But he's going to have hopefully a really long career at Rangers because he's really effective and he knows what's required, and his work ethic puts a lot of the senior pros to shame. So good on him. And I, if he was starting every week, I wouldn't be surprised, because I think he's also got the quality. He's not like watching, no disrespect to McCausland or even Glenn Middleton before him. He's got a lot more quality. I think he's just the same as any young winger breaking through, where he's just got that inconsistency and sometimes he might not be able to always find his feet within a game. But that's why he's young, and you have other wingers for a rotation and you see who can get the best out of the game at that particular time. But I've got no doubts that in 3 or 4 years, when he's got a number of games under his belt and all that experience, he'll be even better than he is. As for Mikey Moore, I thought was it not a bit strange his inclusion into the Old Firm game? I thought it was a really weird one for him to start, and it just got me thinking. I wonder if it's in his contract that he has to start these games.
It could be. You never know. You know what's done behind closed doors, deal wise. That's a big game to show off down south, isn't it? So you could have in it. So you just never know, Scotty. But William, what's your obviously I'll be like to know your opinion on Finlay Curtis. Scotty just said it reminds him of Chris Burke, so I hope he doesn't catch pneumonia in Aberdeen anytime soon.
Yeah, like Finley's got, I think his biggest attribute, Finley's his mental strength. He doesn't really get too up nor too down. He's kind of quite level-headed. He's got a really good nature about him. He'll just continue to work hard no matter what happens on the pitch. He's very focused on what he wants to do. He knows what he's good at. He's a very clean striker of the ball. He always has been since he was young. He's got this unbelievable knack of just finding the right spots in the pitch to score goals. Sometimes it's luck more than fortune, but you know what? It still counts. I just think he's got so many good attributes. And we've got another 3 or 4 kids who are not far away. So hopefully in the not too distant future, we'll see some of those guys given an opportunity to play as well, whether that's this season or next. But there's definitely quality there that have a chance to break through.
That's good to hear. Well, that's good to hear. So thank you for joining me tonight, William, and thank you for joining me tonight, Scotty. And also thank you for everybody who's tuning in. I know the Scotland game was on, you were probably watching that or whatever, but thank you anyway. We'll catch you all on Friday. Bye for now.